NATO was founded in 1949 to protect the United States and transatlantic partners from the aggression of those who seek to harm us. In fact, it was Russian aggression in a divided Berlin that finally convinced our partners to sign the treaty. The world has endured a lot in the past 76 years since then, but NATO has played a crucial role in preserving stability and security. It is this security that has provided room for enormous U.S. and European economic prosperity. Today, as in times past, NATO must adapt to new changes and new challenges. Our alliance faces unprecedented threats from a rising China, a belligerent Russia, and rogue actors in Iran, North Korea, and elsewhere. This year's NATO summit presents a unique opportunity to assess the threats facing our alliance and the response they demand from us if we hope to maintain the security and stability the world has enjoyed for so long, much of it due to what NATO offers us. Over the last decade, but particularly the last 3 years, Putin's aggression has created the largest security crisis in Europe since the Second World War. In 2014, Russia invaded Ukraine for the first time, and Europe did little to deter further aggression. After the full-scale invasion in 2022, Europe leaders made momentous pledges to take more responsibility. 3 years on, Europe still has a long way to go. Since January 20th, President Trump has worked diligently to determine whether peace between Ukraine and Russia is possible, and we strongly support his efforts to secure a lasting peace in the region. Russia's actions demonstrate an unwillingness to support peace and a preference for war to continue, a war that has already radically reshaped the security landscape in Europe and proving one indisputable fact: NATO is more relevant than ever and will be for decades to come. There are still actors who seek to subvert America, our allies, and the values we hold dear. Russia's invasion of Ukraine proved that we do not live in a, quote, post-conflict era, end quote. As Secretary General Ruda has pointed out, Russia could be ready to use military force against a NATO nation within a few years. We can only defend against these threats together, but there are still members of NATO that take the alliance and U.S. support for granted. For decades, our European allies have left the heavy lifting to America, and by their own admission, did not pull their own weight in defense spending. This is starting to change, thankfully. NATO has always succeeded because there was no first or second tier membership. Unanimity in voting guarantees sovereignty, and equality is respected. However, the failure of Europe to spend appropriately on defense started to create the very tiers that NATO worked to avoid. Europeans must make dramatic investment in their defense. U.S. taxpayers will not continue to foot their bill. Thanks to President Trump's leadership since he first came to office, I believe Europe now understands this. Many of us on this committee have underscored that issue with them when we meet with them. The number of allies fulfilling their defense spending pledges has risen from 6 members in 2017, when President Trump first took office, to 23 today, with many more presenting plans to reach 2% by the end of this year. This is great progress, and I'm glad that Secretary General Ruda has called for greater defense investment and production capacity across NATO. Our allies must agree to raise defense spending levels to 5% of their GDP, and not through defense-adjacent expenditures. That means increasing production of defense capabilities, equipment, recruitment, and developing innovative technologies that enhance lethality. Many of these topics will be discussed at the NATO summit in June, and I look forward to seeing the outcomes of those conversations. After all, Russia is not the only threat NATO faces. NATO's security umbrella does not and should not cover Asia, but Iran, North Korea, and China actively support Russia's war in Ukraine. These authoritarian actors are not operating in silos, and NATO can't think of them as such. Indeed, China poses risks to NATO military readiness. The alliance must set standards for its members to guard against malign Chinese investments and supply chain vulnerabilities that threaten NATO's security in Europe. Above all, we must remember that we are united. There may be disagreements, from trade to technology, but the threats we face are existential, and none of us can face them alone. NATO is still the most successful political and military organization in the history of this planet. Adversaries who seek to do us harm would be wise to recognize that fact. I'm grateful to our witnesses for being with us today and look forward to a productive conversation on the future of the NATO alliance. With that, I yield to the distinguished ranking member, Senator Shaheen.